Live from Vietnam, it's EJ and Luna with BREADCAST. Hello, everybody. I'm EJ.
I'm Luna.
We're here in Vietnam,
Mm-hmm.
temporary home of one Joe Biden. For better or worse.
You.
For worse.
I bet his jet lag is really bad now.
Oh, you haven't seen the speech yet. We're gonna
No.
watch the jet lag speech today. We're gonna watch it probably about an hour or so.
Because
It's the sleepiest I've ever seen Sleepy Joe.
Exactly. Vietnam and the USA is like exactly 12 hours away from each other, and sometimes half a year is even 13 hours different. So I mean, gonna be terrible.
Luna, will you do me a big favor and nudge my camera just this way a little bit? I don't have any lead lines. It's making people feel anxious. What do you think? This is a horror movie? Don't forget your headphones. Don't forget your headphones.
I know. That is why I look at you with that hateful.
While you do that, I'll set up the show.
Eyes.
How's that a deal? That's mutual
like
aid.
Seriously, I'm just
Mutual aid.
everything.
Mutually assured.
You don't know how many things are
Satisfaction.
attaching to me now.
Luna, just a little this way. There you go. A little bit. There you go. Come on. Keep it going. Keep it right there. Up. That was like, no. It jerked back. You got to take the jerk back into consideration. No, a little too far. Take it back. Down a little bit. This is the funnest part of the show. The camera adjustments.
Fun.
There. Okay. And she even took the jerk back into consideration. It's perfect. Everyone's happy now. And balance was restored to the universe. I hope everybody's having a great week. We're doing okay over here.
Not me. The last 2 minutes.
Sometimes life can be an unbearable burden, Luna, but with the help of our comrades, we get through it. How's everybody doing? Give us a report in the comments. Let us know your trials, your tribulations, your victories, your boons. If you have been portended with any great boons. We have a boon, Luna.
What is a boon?
A boon is like the opposite of a curse, or it's like a fortuitous blessing.
Oh, really?
Yeah, we've been blessed with a super chat from Gay Schroer.
Gay.
Who says, Hi. About one previous program, thanks to Luna, I knew about the song What Does the Fox Say? Well, like the fox, our comrades are red and beautiful. That's a good metaphor. Thank you very much. That's very appreciated. Very kind of you.
Mm-hmm.
I don't want to encourage Luna to sing that song anymore, though.
I am trying to restrain myself from singing.
If you do, I'm going to hum the bad version of the Quantum Leap anthem, and that's all there is to it.
Oh, gosh.
So it's a mutually assured destruction. There's a lot of mutual assurance today. EJ has a lot of echo.
Because your voice is so loud, and there's a lot of bass in your voice. That is why you would have a higher chance of having
Grant,
echo.
do you agree with Luna's analysis? I don't know. They're saying there's a lot of echo. Do you perceive a lot of echo in my tone?
I think there's echo because his voice is
booming.
Bass, kind of a lot of bass in it.
Do you agree with Luna's assessment, Grant? Does it sound like my microphone is off, or does it sound like I'm echoey, or does it sound... It's the only live stream where the producer can't hear the hosts.
Yeah, right. Hi, Antonio.
I guess we'll
Hi there.
There's reverb, people are saying, with my voice. I don't know. Maybe it's being picked up on... I don't know. I can't understand why that would be. I don't know. I can't tell because...
That's weird.
See, the obnoxious thing about this is I have to go over there and put my headphones on, then I'll be over there.
Yeah.
And then I won't be able to hear myself.
Yeah.
There's absolutely no way for you to get your phone out, Grant, and like put some headphones on or something. It sounds like I'm far from the mic again. All right. Well, I guess I'm going to go troubleshoot the audio while Luna talks now. So put Luna's camera up. We love it. We love this.
People are asking, are you sure that your voice will not pick up by my microphone, which is
I don't
weird.
know. I can't tell because there's no way for me to know.
Yeah, there's no way.
Even when I put my headphones, I'm not going to know because I can't talk and be on my headphones at the same time. So talk, Luna.
Hi, okay, so
Don't say hi, everybody, again. You said hi,
I'm
everybody.
sorry. I mean, I could say, okay. Okay, okay, that's a comment from Josh. Fortuitous is similar to the belief among retailers in Vietnam that the first sale of the day will portend a good fortune. Yeah, exactly. And usually that is why I usually avoid going to, church or market something early in the morning, because I do not want to be the first customers of any retailer, because if I just happen to not like something that I refuse to buy, that means a bad fortune for the seller. So usually I would go around noon or after that. So that is my my experience. But like if you're foreigner, you go to Vietnam, it's fine. We don't have any.
Hop over to my chair. Hop over to my chair because it's the only way to test the microphone.
I love you so much. And I'm doing
You
this.
think that I am having a good time right now? I'm
Yes.
All right.
Check. 1, 2, 3.
No,
check.
It definitely sounds like crap. Keep talking.
Check.
Just
One,
talk. Just talk
Hey.
to the people.
All right, I'm talking to people. Oh my goodness. Okay. Activist Mel said, "You you love my shirt. Thanks. I love it too." So usually the thing that I do is I love hunting for clothes in secondhand stores. I mean, it's very, very, very cheap, and many times you can find awesome stuff in there. So simplistic linguistics said, yeah, it sounds a little bit reverby when Luna is reverby. I hate English. The way you write and the way you speak totally different. Or maybe EJ fixed it. That did something. What did you did? Just did something.
I don't know. I'm trying to figure that out.
It's weird. Okay. So the topic today is gonna be about, well, the very, very sleepy speech of Joe Biden. And I gotta tell you this. I'm trying to be understandable here. I mean, Vietnam is 12, 13 hours away, different from the US. He's an old guy. Of course, he's sleepy. Let's just see what, Joe Biden's speech in Vietnam.
I cannot for the life of me figure out what it is. I don't know.
It seems fixed right about now.
All right. Well, hopefully it is. Hopefully it is.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Switch back to your seat. We'll
Okay.
just carry on.
Okay.
I might just have to be echoey again for one more week. See, we're fixing problems one at a time. Eventually, we'll have this all ironed out. It's pretty hard when we don't have, somebody to run the sound for us. You see how it is. We got to jump back and forth. And anyway, all right. So welcome to the show again.
It's better. People say it's all good.
All right. I know. I just self-crit. I shouldn't have said welcome to the show. But see, now it says I'm overmodulating. So if I'm starting to overmodulate, then Grant, you need to push me down a little bit in the levels. All right. So just to get it balanced out. All right. So I guess where should we begin? We got a lot to talk about. Unfortunately, we've wasted 10 minutes with the technical crap. Ho Chi Minh should be right there. We need like a pedestal for Ho Chi Minh.
Right.
Like I'm gonna have to build something. Like we need a little marble statue.
We have a material for it, I think. To use to build frame. But anyway, move on.
I've got a story about Elon Musk to start up with if you want. Elon Musk and the Nazis.
Oh my gosh. Oh, by the way, people, before why EJ is getting it ready, my Twitter engagement is super low. It's like no doubt about it. And here's the thing too. I am a poor little Vietnamese woman living in Vietnam, and I am being punished for refusing to pay $8 a month to a billionaire, the richest guy on earth.
It's a shakedown. It's a shakedown operation.
So yeah, my account is embarrassing now. It's a shame now.
They've
There's no
definitely
point
ramped
of
down
using
Luna's engagement, basically. And also the other thing is, I mean, I just recommend at this point. I mean, I think Luna's leaving.
I'm
Twitter.
gonna leave. It's like there's no point staying anyway.
But here's the reason why: because the new terms of service, from what I understand, I haven't actually read it myself yet. Tell me if I'm wrong, chat. But what I've been led to believe is that the new terms of service will basically make it so that not only does Twitter own the rights to anything you write on Twitter, but they can use it in their AI training for the AI that Musk is building, and it just becomes like Musk's at that point. So I think that the new terms of service kick in like a week or two.
Yeah,
so,
I mean the 29th, I think. So like
we've already gone ahead and requested the backup of all of Luna's data, and then we're going to delete all of Luna's tweets and just find some. I don't know. Maybe find another platform for Luna, or maybe just stop with the shouting into the void at strangers. We are going to talk about one of Luna's Twitter threads about Joe Biden in a moment, a little bit later in the show.
Yeah.
And I'm going to talk about how infuriating Twitter ding-dongs can be sometimes. Has a lot to do with the infantile disorder of ultra-leftism. But that's a little spoiler alert for later in the show. Just catching up on the chat now, looking at it for the first time since I sat down. So okay, let's check out this article. Here comes this article. Linda Yaccarino said X has never been safer, but major brands are pulling advertising after posts appeared beside pro-Nazi content. So Linda promised businesses. So if you don't know, Linda is the CEO of X now, which to me, from what I can tell, is a total figurehead position. I think Musk is absolutely still micromanaging everything.
Yeah.
I almost feel sorry for Linda, except I'm sure that Linda can cry herself to sleep on a big bag of money every night. So I don't quite have the sympathy I might otherwise have. But Linda promised businesses their brands would be safe on X, the social media site formerly known as Twitter. For the companies who saw their post being promoted on a pro-Nazi profile this week, that pledge is ringing utterly hollow. This week, Media Matters, a not-for-profit research and insight site, published a report appearing to show posts from major global brands being unknowingly promoted on a pro-Nazi profile. Since then, numerous companies have withdrawn their advertising for the platform, with others adding their posts had been promoted without ever paying for the service. So once again, Musk is basically like forcing people to advertise on Twitter, whether they like it or not, similar to when he was giving out blue checks to people against their will.
Safer for who, Linda?
Right. Safer for who? Good point.
Yeah.
Safer for Nazis. It comes less than a week after Yaccarino promised companies their brands would be safe on the platform, even announcing an advertising council would be reinstated to support relations between the platform and its advertisers. Okay. But Yaccarino, a former exec for NBC Universal, can expect a frosty reception at the first meeting. Gilead Sciences, a multi-billion-dollar conglomerate, has withdrawn its advertising on the Musk-owned platform after its post announcing the launch of a new location was apparently promoted without Gilead's knowledge on a hate speech account.
Gosh.
Gilead does not support the promotion of hate speech of any kind, said Gilead. The pro-Nazi account has now been suspended. I thought that you were a free speech absolutist, Musk. See, it's like there's no consistency, there's no coherency. It's just, and that's the nature of fascism.
Yep.
And it's safe to say that Trump is a fascist. We've talked about it many, many times. I mean, there's no doubt anymore. The things that Musk has promoted, the people that Musk associates with, there's just no doubt about that. So anyway, I just, it's an unsafe, not only is it an unsafe platform, it's an obnoxious platform, because now every time you tweet anything, Luna, within, I'm talking like a second or two, you're bombarded with spam.
Yeah, my engagement is like dirty low, and then I am being targeted by bots account. And nearly seconds after every single post of mine on Twitter,
the second she posts something,
every single thread that I made is like bombarded with bot account.
Yeah, it's like buy crypto from me.
Gosh.
Bots. It's wild. I've never seen this much spam on any platform ever in my life. And Musk promised that the blue checks was going to like eliminate spam. So anyway, I can't believe we stuck around this long, to be honest. I think it's going to be good to get that albatross off of our neck. I've been off of Twitter for a few years now.
Just get the heck off.
I'm very glad to be off of Twitter, and I encourage you to do the same. I'm not saying that there's a better platform, as far as all these capitalist platforms go, but I will say that it's probably good for all of us. It's this whole like meltdown of social media. It's probably good for all of us, and especially for our movement.
Mm-hmm.
I think it was an energy drain for a long time, and I hope that if I'm being completely honest, I hope that no platform gains any kind of primacy ever again.
Yeah.
I hope they're all like equally like
Shithole.
circling the drain in relative irrelevancy for the rest of my life. I hope that like my grandkids, if I ever have grandkids, would be like, tell us what social media was like, Grandpapa.
Once upon a time.
So anyway, so the that's just a little warm up. Hopefully we're all on the same page about Elon Musk and Twitter being absurdly awful. We have a little labor update. I don't think we read this last week. I wanted to read this last week and we didn't get a chance. So I want to so we talked a lot about labor last week. If you haven't seen the VOD for that episode, I think it was a good episode. But we talked about, AI and how it's impacting people in the workplace. And oh, no. We're not allowing ads.
And I think that's what I whine about, how it is insulting to me seeing a lot of Facebook, like pages of like business pages of companies that use AI art, and it was horrible. Instead of paying a little bit to the artist, I'm sure that it's not that expensive, but then they use AI free art that is look like actual. It's just bad, and it's so insulting. It's just like it made me just never want to see that site again. Get out my site, and it's so bad.
All right, I got this. Wait, what? This is the wrong link. What the heck's going on here? What's going on? Explain this to me. Why isn't this working?
Weird. Fix it.
I'm trying. All right, we're getting this up. Yeah, but the thing about AI art that's funny is that like it's so easy to just oh my god. I
mean, it's so bad, and I don't get it. People they don't really see it as a problem. They don't see there's anything wrong with the art they're using. I really don't get it. It's annoying.
What's the deal with AI art?
It's so insulting. Oh my goodness.
Yeah, I know a lot of artists that are very upset about this. I'm also worried for I have a lot of comrades who are voice actors.
Oh.
And the AI voices are getting very true to life now. It is true that you can't get the same quality of performance at all from an AI, of course, because they don't have any kind of critical thinking skill whatsoever. But the kind of companies that are using AI voices, they're not exactly looking for quality.
They don't.
I mean, these are the same companies that were just like a year ago using the like really bad AI voices. But I don't know. I mean, the competition is going to get stiffer over time, but not in ways that enrich our lives. Like if AI was like performing really well and making like really good art, that would be one thing. But I think what's going to happen instead is that companies are just going to start shoveling worse and worse stuff at us, and we're just going to be even more inundated with crap all the time. All right, let's take a look at this article. Susie Chaco, work from home employee. We didn't read this last week, did we? Was fired for not typing enough.
No.
Has unfair dismissal claim thrown out by Fair Work Commission after damning keystroke technology revealed the truth about what she was really doing on the job. So this can be filed under everything that capitalist apologists claim is scary about communism is actually a problem with capitalism.
Exactly.
Because they always say communism is so terrible because you have no privacy and Everyone's watching you all the time. But it's like your
Oh,
boss
yeah.
wants to watch you all
Literally
the time.
happened in USA under NSA.
Well, not even the NSA, but like Amazon or here IAG.
Yeah, Alexa.
No, I mean, I'm just talking about you're a boss though, like your employer.
True,
You
yeah,
know,
of
that's what
course.
this. So, okay, an insurance employee who worked from home was sacked after her boss tracked her keystrokes and realized she was hardly doing any work. Okay, that's what her boss says anyway. Susie Chaco was fired from her role as communications disclosure consultant at Insurance Australia Group, where she'd worked for 18 years. Her duties included creating insurance documents, ensuring documents abided by legal standards, meeting regulatory timeframes, and mailbox management. Her employment was terminated after she missed numerous deadlines and meetings, was absent and uncontactable, and had failed to lodge a product disclosure statement that resulted in the regulatory finding IAG, according to findings from the Fair Work Commission. Of course, who knows what's actually true? Who knows? But she argued she was unfairly dismissed, but her claim was dismissed last month after the commission found she was sacked for a valid reason of misconduct. Her boss asked IAG's cyber team to conduct a review of her laptop activity from October to December by checking how much she was typing on her laptop while she was working. It was discovered through the review that Ms. Chaco did not work her rostered hours, 7:30 to 4 a.m., for 44 days in that period of time. She started work late on 7 days and left early on 29 days. She also recorded 0 work hours for 40 days. Anyway, the way that they obtained all this information supposedly is from checking the keystrokes in her laptop. And you know that there are companies that will monitor everything you do online. They will monitor everything that happens on your company laptop. And of course, there are companies like Amazon where in the warehouse, they just literally have cameras on you all the time, and they're monitoring like how much you go to the bathroom to the minute, to the second. So, I mean, I think that this is obviously a very propagandistically written article. It doesn't seem to really she doubted the accuracy. That's the other thing. Like, how do you know? Like, who? There's nobody to be accountable to, right? Unless you have a workers' union. If she was in a good trade union, then they would be able to investigate this on her behalf. But the way this has worked out is that who's investigating? The company's basically cyber espionage team, and it's like they're the ones that are controlling all the data.
Yeah.
She doesn't have any like way or resources to even check if this is accurate information or whatever. So anyway, I just found this a little spooky, and I think it's just becoming more and more normalized that people get monitored at work. They send spies out to people that work at home. Luna, did you know that?
What?
So
Wait a minute.
They will send people. Okay, so like if you work at home, right? They will send somebody to your door, an employee, like an undercover agent, or maybe somebody who's like your friend at work, even, to go knock on your door and check and see if you're actually working.
What in the world is that?
This is
mind.
This is the brave new world that we
Welcome to capitalism. Wow, great system.
I love this. Unhelpful Heap says she sounds awesome. I don't know, I'm not going to say I've never had a job where I didn't type a whole lot at work when I was supposed to be, but but it's like, who's the one that, okay, it's again, this is also like a Darvo tactic if you think about it, right?
Yeah.
Because, or if you're class conscious at all.
Yeah.
Because who are the ones that are stealing all the labor value? The capitalists.
Yes.
And a true capitalist who's making money just from investing doesn't do any work at all. Exactly. And yet they get the biggest piece of the pie by far. Mm-hmm. So honestly, I mean, I wrote an article a long time ago. It's called it was basically comparing, it was saying if you can get away with it, you should just be like Garfield at work and do everything you can to shirk as much work as you possibly can and get away with it, because they're just stealing your labor value. That's all they're doing. And why give them any more than the bare minimum? It's not even a matter of like minimum wage, minimum effort, but it's more like, to me, from my perspective, if you're going to steal the majority of my labor value, why should I give you any more than the bare minimum to get to scrape by, right?
Gosh, it's so horrible. Welcome to land of the free.
So, yeah, capitalism in a nutshell. Here's a pretty dark story, but I think it's really important to cover this. This is about ICE. So remember that, okay, Joe Biden was supposed to shut down all the ICE camps, right? That was part of wasn't that a campaign promise? Correct me if I'm wrong. That's not the case. And not only that, but the abuses, the human rights abuses, have not ended either. So this is from last week too, but obviously still an ongoing problem. Government's own experts found barbaric and negligent conditions in ICE detention. There shouldn't even be ICE detention. It shouldn't even be a thing. In Michigan, a man in the, oh my gosh, NPR. Come on.
Pain in the butt.
All right. A man in the custody of Immigration and Customs Enforcement was sent into a jail's general population unit with an open wound from surgery, no bandages, and no follow-up medical appointment scheduled, even though he still had surgical drains in place.
Jesus.
A federal inspector found the detainee never received even the most basic care for his wound. And I mean, that's just mind-boggling.
Are we back in the Middle Ages?
In Georgia, a nurse ignored an ICE detainee who urgently asked for an inhaler to treat his asthma. Even though he is never examined by medical staff, the nurse put a note in the medical record that he was seen in the sick call, so lied about medical treatment being given. The documentation by the nurse bordered on falsification, and the failure to see a patient urgently requesting medical attention regarding treatment with an inhaler was negligent. And in Pennsylvania, so this is not just one area, or what, this is in Georgia, Michigan, now Pennsylvania. A group of correctional officers strapped a mentally ill male ICE detainee into a restraint chair and gave the lone female officer a pair of scissors to cut off his clothes for a strip search. There is no justifiable correctional reason that required the detainee who had a mental health condition to have his clothes cut off by a female officer while he was compliant in a restraint chair. This is a barbaric practice and clearly violates basic principles of humanity. Remember, these are people who they're not like violent, quote unquote, criminals or anything like that. These are just people who came to the USA because the USA devastated their home nation.
And because they are propaganda, the American dream, a lot of us still believe in it.
Yeah, hopefully people start to learn that the American dream is a bunch of BS. But anyway, these findings are all part of a trove of more than 1,600 pages of previously secret inspection reports written by experts hired by the Department of Homeland Security's Office for Civil Rights and Civil Liberties. That is a incongruent name of a department right there. The Department of Homeland Security's Office for Civil Rights and Civil Liberties. In examining more than 24 facilities across 16 states from 2017 to 2019, these inspectors found negligent medical care, unsafe and filthy conditions, racist abuse of detainees, inappropriate pepper spraying of mentally ill detainees, and other problems that in some cases contributed to detainee deaths. Didn't even go into the COVID era. I can only imagine the horrors of the COVID era. These reports almost never became public. For more than 3 years, the federal government, under both Trump and Biden administrations, fought NPR's effort to obtain these records. That opposition continued despite a Biden campaign promise to demand transparency in and independent oversight over ICE. The records were obtained in response to a FOIA lawsuit brought by NPR. After 2 years, a federal judge found the government had violated the nation's public records law and ordered the release of the documents. So I guess in a few more years, we'll get the documents about 2020 to 2023.
Yeah, right.
And find out what's going on right now. The reports provide an unprecedented look at the ICE detention system through the eyes of experts hired to investigate complaints of civil rights abuses who provide an often unvarnished perspective. These experts have specific expertise in subjects such as medicine, mental health, use of force, and environmental health. These reports are chilling. They are damning, said Eunice Cho, senior staff attorney for the American Civil Liberties Union's National Prison Project and an expert on ICE detention, when NPR shared the findings. They really show how the government's own inspectors can see the abuses and the level of abuses that are happening in ICE detention. So, yeah, I mean, the ICE camps should absolutely, they're concentration camps. Let's call them what they are.
Yeah, it is.
They need to be shut down. There are almost certainly abuses still going on today. Why else do you think Biden would be fighting so hard to not want this information released? I mean, if it was think about it, okay? I mean, honestly, if it was just stuff that Trump's administration was doing that was wrong and Biden really cleaned up the act of ICE and everything was fine now, then wouldn't Biden want to release the information to show like, oh, look how bad Trump was, right? I mean, look how bad the Republicans are. The fact that Biden's trying to hide this shit means that there's stuff that Biden wants to hide.
I mean, they two sides of the same coin. They serve the same status quo, so it's no different between any one of them.
That is a fact. All right. So we're going to start moving into the Stop Cop City and just policing in general topic. I mean, I think that ICE is obviously a part of that discussion and a big piece of evidence that the system of what we call criminal justice in the USA is rotten to the core. But there's some really, really, really worrying things coming down the pipeline in terms of Stop Cop City and the new RICO charges that they're doing. So if you're not sure what RICO is, it's basically like a racketeering and organized crime law in the U.S. And they're basically trying to, in my opinion, the way this is all going to shake out, if it goes forward unimpeded, is political organizing outside of the framework of the Republican and Democrat Party will basically be illegal. To try to do anything that goes outside of the Overton window, or whatever you want to call it, the mainstream perception of the USA political binary, will essentially be considered organized crime, because that's what they're trying to do to Stop Cop City. Before we go into that, though, I want to just quickly show you how ridiculous and egregious the police state is in the USA. So let's see. This is an article about Los Angeles on the other coast, the other side of the USA. LA is awful, by the way. If you've never heard of the cop gangs in Los Angeles, it's really absurd how corrupt and terrible the cops are in Los Angeles. So, Luna, in Los Angeles, there are gangs which are completely enclosed within the police. So, there will be an organized crime, basically family within police departments.
Okay.
So, and this is very common. It's very, very prevalent. This is one of the most corrupt police stations, police agencies in the world. One of the most violent. One of the most funded as well now, especially. Los Angeles commits another $1 billion to the LAPD despite falling violent crime. Police say they need pay raises to help with hiring and retention, but crime has been falling in Los Angeles, even as the department reports having its lowest number of officers in decades. The Los Angeles City Council approved a contract with the Los Angeles Police Department's union on Wednesday containing salary increases, increased healthcare pay, and bonuses that will cost the city an additional $994 million over the next 4 years. What can Los Angeles do with $1 billion besides giving it to these pigs? I mean, think about all the different programs that they could have.
It's so depressing.
They could feed people. They could help people with drug addiction.
How many houses people
are there give people houses, exactly.
In LA? Just give some food to them. Oh my goodness.
And houses, right. No, we got to give it to the pigs, even though crime is on the downtick.
Oh gosh.
Which there's a whole other discussion to be had about how crime statistics are in large part fabricated by police departments to make things scarier than they really are.
Yeah, they could probably house all of houses. $1 billion. You can house the whole entire the USA or something, not just LA. $1 billion is a lot of money. I mean, a lot.
It's a staggering amount of money. I mean, if you remember, have you ever seen the chart where they show what $100 and then $1,000 and then $1 million looks like, and then $1 billion? It's you're talking about
your brain cannot comprehend.
Yeah.
How large amount of money it is when we're talking about $1 billion.
The Los Angeles City Council approved a contract. The 12-3 vote followed an outpouring of opposition from Angelenos, who argued during public comment that the police have more than enough funding. Many pleaded with council members to invest in the city instead and other services like housing and infrastructure.
Oh, wait a minute. They said it would cost about $21 billion for the entire U.S. homeless population, right? 600,000 homeless. But here's the way they calculated that they calculated building whole new housing.
Well, that's for the whole USA too.
Exactly.
This is just Los Angeles we're talking about.
And there are a lot of empty houses, and people just seize them and give it to people. Cost way less.
With the USA situation where it's it's like an abysmal human rights crisis, the number of houseless people in the USA.
Yeah.
The only ethical solution is to seize those houses and redistribute them to houseless people. But that's not going to happen under bourgeois democracy. It's just not going to happen.
By the way, there's an anti-communist toilet newspaper account in the chat. That's so funny. Loser.
Just ban them. I don't care.
Yes, I am doing it now.
We got much more important things to talk about than some loser troll. Okay. when we allocate so much of our city money to one department, we starve all of the other departments of the money, personnel, and resources they need to serve Angelenos. That's true. That's obvious. Who could argue against that? Said Councilmember Unesis Hernandez at a press conference before the hearing. Hernandez voted no to the proposal alongside Councilmembers Hugo Soto Martinez and Nitya Raman. It is unclear exactly how the city will pay for nearly $1 billion in salary increases over the next 4 years, despite the fact that we already allocated a quarter of our city's general fund to the LAPD. 1/4.
Yeah, right.
That's a big, that's atrocious. LAPD says the raises are necessary to improve officer recruitment and retention. The union states that the LAPD's starting pay is lower than the departments in surrounding jurisdictions, a disparity they claim has made it harder to hire and retain officers. In a survey of officers who left the force in recent years, however, only a fraction said they were doing so to join another agency. The department recently stated that it has less than 9,000 officers, the fewest since the 1990s when violent crime was around 3 times its current level. According to data collected by the Federal Bureau of Investigation, nearly 90,000 violent crimes were reported to LAPD in 1991. In 2021, that number was below 30,000. And of course, the solution to violent crime has been proven over and over again not to be giving the police more money and militarizing them and giving them more weapons and funding and everything. It's investing in communities.
Yeah. A super chat from Chimamadu.
What does it say?
The city of Baltimore was completely sold out to real estate companies in 2013. Mayor Blake threatened to bankrupt the city if she didn't get her way.
Hey, let me look at that.
Baltimore, Mayor Blake.
That's yeah.
Ew.
I've heard really interesting things about the corruption in Baltimore. I need to learn a lot more about that city. I know that it's I mean, like, you know, New York City has been corrupt and beholden to real estate developers for, you know, I don't know, centuries maybe.
Oh my God.
But that's what happens when you allow people to accumulate that much wealth in a society where wealth equals power. And that's what capitalism is. That is the nature of capitalism.
Yeah.
It's a process, it's a machine that sucks up and siphons up all of the money from workers and gives it to landlords and capitalists and, you know, real estate developers. And that's the way the system works. That's the way it's intentionally designed to continue functioning.
Exactly.
So, although the crime recently generally increased across the country during the pandemic, recent data from Los Angeles shows that homicides, gun violence, aggravated assaults, and other violent crimes decreased in 2022. What does that mean? That means that nonviolent crime is being used to scare capitalists. Because, you know, what are the kinds of crimes that increased during COVID? Shoplifting and crap like that. Why? Because people can't afford food and medicine and crap like that.
Hungry. Sounds like Vietnam in the famine in 1945.
But see, here's the thing. If you give the people food and medicine and everything like that, they're not going to buy it from capitalists. So you have to just from the capitalist perspective, if you think about it from the perspective of the capitalist, the logical thing to do is to withhold as much as possible from workers.
So they have to buy from them.
So they have to buy it from you. And the only solution then is to just police the hell out of people and create, you know, once again, you know, people talk about how communism's authoritarian. Like capitalism is the most, like the USA is the most authoritarian nation on earth. Domestically and in terms of foreign policy. There's no country in the world that uses violence to coercively enforce its agenda more than the USA in all of human history.
It's a miserable society again, where, you know, a hungry person just like having to steal for their daily life food. It's sad. And the USA is not just a third world country in the middle of nowhere on earth. It is the quote unquote richest and the greatest country on earth.
That's something Biden said in his speeches, that the USA has the strongest economy right now in the world.
You're right.
Which is just like...
The economy is so strong. The inflation rate is so great that they are pushing the inflation out to other countries.
I mean, do you feel like your economy is very strong where you are if you're in the USA? All right. So anyway, let's keep moving on with the article. Those calling for more police funding are completely ignoring the fact that the city of LA is safer today than it was when there were more law enforcement officers on our streets. This is not a resource problem. LAPD's failure to recruit is a clear message that LA residents do not want to be part of a failed institution that exercises violence with impunity. So, all right, keep that in mind. The overfunding of police and the fact that police are being, militarized to enforce the agenda of the capitalist class. The police are a gang, literally, like in no uncertain terms in LA, but across the USA,
Yeah.
the police are a gang.
Joshua said, "Don't need community towns anymore when the whole country runs like one."
That's absolutely right.
And good
Yeah,
point.
LA is definitely a company town.
I mean, imagine, like the big companies just, literally like put an end to literally the entire culture of having, home grocery stores in your area. Now, most of you, if you live in rural area, you have to drive at least 30 minutes to 1 hour, even 1 hour and a half, just to go to the nearest grocery store. And it's
Even in
massive.
cities, if you live in a food desert, which I've lived in a food desert before, it's absurd.
It's totally different story in Vietnam, where it's literally like you should just walk for within the matter of 5 minutes of walking. There is a grocery store just run by some lady in her own house.
Or
That's
the
it.
local wet markets. Every
The
single
local
city
wet
has a wet
market.
market.
Yeah.
You could be in the middle of the most dense city in Vietnam, in Ho Chi Minh City, or you could be way out in the middle of the countryside, and there's going to be a wet market, and there's going to be fresh, nutritious produce
And
and
very
food and
affordable.
everything available. Yeah. So once again, it's like everything that they say is terrible about socialism is actually a problem with capitalism. Like
Yeah.
almost every single example you could think of.
Super Mario, Super Chat, thank you so much for the support. The US is like a homeless man with a Gucci belt.
Well, I like to think of it as like what is it that they say? It's a third world country with really good PR. You could also think of it as a military with a nation attached, and you can throw the police in with that, equation. Synthetic says, my community in the USA might as well be a poverty-stricken war zone between political extremists. Traveling to Vietnam has made this so apparent to me.
Wow.
Absolutely. Like being in Vietnam for the last decade has really opened my eyes to how terrible things are in the USA. And every time I go back, things are worse. I was talking to a Vietnamese person the other day, and they said, "What do you think about, living in Vietnam for so long?" And I told them, it's like the most striking thing the most striking example I could say is that, like, over the last 10 years, I've only seen the conditions in Vietnam get better and better rapidly. And then every time I go back, things are worse and worse. It's really striking and shocking. And I don't think people who have been in the USA continuously over the last decade realize that so much, at least, the people that I know.
Yeah.
It's like the frog in the pot, where the boiling water is just getting turned up and up and
Yeah.
up, and they don't realize it. But when I go back, it's shocking, especially when I went back after the first time after COVID. It was like absolutely wild how terrible and just dismal things have gotten, and most people don't even really notice it. They don't even really, they're not conscious of it. All right, so let's talk about what's going on with Stop Cop City. If you're not familiar with Stop Cop City, it's a movement to stop the building of a
Cop City.
Well, what is Cop City? Cop City is a police militarization facility, which is going to teach cops to use urban militarization tactics to essentially suppress protesters. That's essentially the main point of it.
Yeah.
There is going to be a bomb range. There's going to be automatic weapons range. They're going to teach people how to use tanks and that sort of thing. And they used to have these back in the civil rights era, in like the 50s and 60s and 70s. They had little cities set up across the country where they would train police to like suppress protesters, basically.
Yeah, and uprising, it is a direct answer to the uprising in 2020.
Now, the other thing is that nobody wants this in the community or in Atlanta at large. The community where they want to build it is an unincorporated, historically Black community where overwhelmingly the people in that community don't want it being built there, but they don't have a government structure really to oppose it.
And they're not white, so
they don't have any.
It's easy to abuse them.
And so the Luna and I drove through this area, and you'll just see it's like there's a prison, there's a juvenile detention center, there's waste treatment facilities. It's all stuff that like nobody would want in their community, and they just dump it all in this one community. And this community is also, I should say, from an environmental perspective, they call it the lungs of Atlanta. It's a very important water filtration system. It produces a lot of carbon through the forest. It's a sacred land of the local indigenous people. Nobody wants it there. No, and there's a huge coalition of people trying to stop Cop City. And the ways in which the city and the corporations that are funding Cop City, which is very important to understand this, Cop City is not a government program. It's being built by a non-government entity, which is basically like a sheriff's association sort of thing.
Yeah.
And it's being funded by massive corporations, including the Koch brothers, Chick-fil-A, oil companies, Cox Communications. All these massive corporations are funding it because the police serve the interests of capital.
Too, by the way.
Yeah, Waffle House is also funding it.
Cornelius, super chat, thank you so much. Here's some money to support the Cop City protesters just doing the right thing.
All right. Well, there's a independent journalist group that we'll send that money to.
Yeah.
I can't remember the name of them right now, but
the Atlanta Free
Press
or something like that.
We'll give that to them. Yeah. So thank you, Canisius. We'll pass that along. All right. So and it is very important, by the way, that we support the Stop Cop City movement.
Yeah.
Financially, if you can get your boots on the ground in Atlanta, do so. Also, there are all kinds of opportunities. If you're organizing in a different city, there are all kinds of ways in which you can do activity in your city to help support Stop Cop City. If you do a little research and talk to some of the organizers with Stop Cop City, it'll be very easy to. You can go watch the video on my channel too. They talk about some of the sympathy movement activity that's been going on. For instance, there are corporations that are funding Cop City. You could, and maybe they have a office or something in your city. You could protest outside their office and put pressure on them to stop funding Cop City. But we talked in this program pretty frequently about this. The city has been obstructing an attempt to petition to get this a ballot measure that would just stop Cop City in its tracks. Yeah. The city has done everything it can to stop this. Yeah. It's just so egregious how and these are Democrats, by and large, are also supporting this. And what's amazing to me is how the Democrats are completely throwing away all the goodwill. Like, okay, so when Georgia went Democrat in the last election for Joe Biden, right? That was a pretty big achievement for the Democratic Party. They're throwing all that goodwill away over this.
Oh, because they're the same at the bottom of the everything. They're the same people.
Yeah, well, the Democratic Party structure is, and I've talked to a lot of activists who are in Atlanta telling me this, they're alienating themselves entirely from the organizers and the community leaders who they're going to need to support them moving forward. So I'm really, one thing I'm worried is going to happen is, I don't know what's going to happen, but it's very clear that the corporate interests have like a stranglehold on Atlanta right now. All right, so that's the background if you're not familiar with any of this stuff. Real quick, we got a super chat from Chiba Madu. Thank you so much again, Chiba Madu. Said, what are your thoughts when foreigners, Vietnamese included, who now live in the U.S. say, communism destroyed my family, we have freedom in America? I mean, I can only laugh at that. I've never been in a more unfree place than the USA in my entire life, and I've never felt more free than I do in Vietnam. I don't know, Luna, what do you say?
You need to ask them, what exactly did communism destroy from your family? Like your slaves, your family slaves? Just ask them, what exactly did they destroy? You will know the true story behind that. Maybe an egg monopoly in China?
It's just maybe Luna could talk about that more in your next Mooncast or something like that. But it's just absurd. And the thing about it is the absurdity of it, and this is what gives me a little hope. Okay. Sometimes it can really be depressing. And when we look at when we move on to the Joe Biden story in a bit, and we start looking at the Twitter thread Luna made and some of the reactions people have had to that, it's like people can lie about Vietnam, and they could lie about socialism, and they can lie about communism. But over time, it's going to be harder. It's getting harder. It is harder and harder to lie about socialism. And it's harder and harder to lie about capitalism and make it look much prettier than it is.
Yeah.
Here's a great example of that. When I first moved to Vietnam, I was very indoctrinated by the USA, right? I was very indoctrinated. I was starting to shirk it off because I had spent a year in Korea, but in Korea was like just fundamentally had way better infrastructure and living conditions than the USA. But I was still pretty indoctrinated by the USA. And I went into a lot of cafes. I lived in Ho Chi Minh City for my first year. And I would go into cafes and stuff, and they would have pictures of Ho Chi Minh City, Saigon at the time in the 60s, right? And there were all these cars in the streets. And you would see on Facebook all the time in the expat groups, which are just the most horrendous places on the internet, are like expat groups on Facebook. But you'd go into these Facebook groups and they'd say like, oh, communism has wrecked this country so much. Just look at pictures of Vietnam in the 60s and how they had all these beautiful new cars and stuff like that in the 60s, right?
Yep.
That was in like 2012, 13, right? Around that era. Okay. And at the time, it was true. There were like very few cars on the street. And, people were like, things were just visibly.
It was happier back then because there was no traffic jam, virtually.
I agree. I don't like the rise of the car.
The horrible traffic jam.
But the point is, the economy in Vietnam has gotten so much better in the last 10 years. Nobody can make that argument anymore.
Exactly. It is a trend in Vietnam. Vietnamese anti-communist. Also, a few years ago, like they just keep pointing out, oh, look at this stuff. We call it like the pearl of Indochina, I guess, Saigon. And this show like how rich it is, and now Saigon is so poor. But now they can't do that anymore because if they show a picture of some cars in the street, we would just smash them with like pictures of hundreds of cars in the street. They show a picture, oh, it's so massive that like even traffic jam in the 60s. Now we show them the traffic jam that lasts for hours and kilometers long in the exact same spot. So like they can't do it anymore.
It's really hard to explain to you how. I wish I could just like. I guess I need to like make a photo collage or something. I don't know, like because it's just okay. In 2012. I would look at the pictures of Vietnam in the 60s, and then I would look out the window and see the street, and I'd be like, oh, wow, things really are a little bit more shabby today than they were back in the 60s. Like, you could just tell from looking at the photos and looking at the street. It's like, oh, yeah, things are a little bit more slummy in 2012. That was actually true, right?
Yeah.
But now, in just 10 years, it's completely changed to where if you go into that same cafe today and you see that picture of Ho Chi Minh City in the 60s, and then you look out the window, it's like way nicer now. It's
absolutely way nicer.
Like it's way nicer now than it was in the 60s. Like, and you look at the pictures now and you see the pictures in the 60s, you're like, wow, it's kind of shabby.
You're right.
It looks kind of run down compared to today. And like they're opening up metros. They have like this new bike share program.
Yeah.
They have the public transportation is getting improved like drastically and rapidly. Because I also used to use the
infrastructure. They're building new paved road so that people can walk there. And
the roads are getting way better. I mean, it's just it. So my point is, the whole reason we're talking about this is it's going to get harder and harder and harder for capitalists to spread these lies. Joe Biden did it in the speech we're going to watch later, where he's just like harping on the fact that China has all these problems. It's like, bro, you are in such a glass house throwing stones right now. Like, you're really going to look at the American people in the eye and say, oh, China's having all these problems with its economy. Poor people can't, young people can't get jobs. He said that about China. It's like, are you kidding me? Look at the USA.
No self-awareness whatsoever.
Well, it's a mixture of being, probably a little bit of a mixture of being out of touch and just spending all your time with like corporate fat cats and shit like that. And the fact that it does work is like building a perceptual reality. That's part of the reason, like the reason that the USA focuses on China so much is because they want you to be terrified that, you think things are bad now? Socialism will make your life way worse. Look, China's got way worse than we do. Even though China's eliminated poverty,
extreme poverty.
Vietnam is close to eliminating extreme poverty.
Yes.
Vietnam and China have both virtually, I mean, there's still work to be done in Vietnam, but virtually eliminated houselessness. There are still a few houseless people, but like the problem was way worse 10 years ago.
The farmers here on the means of reduction. You born a farmer in the rural area, you will be allocated a piece of land that will not make you rich, but absolutely will feed you. Imagine the same thing happen in America.
And the point is not to say that Vietnam is some utopia where everything is perfect. In fact, there are a lot of problems here. Yes. And Luna and I talk about them all the time. Corruption. But the point is that things are improving year by year. And you can see the improvement rapidly happening here. And yeah, sometimes they take steps back. Sometimes problems happen. And like we've had problems with our electricity lately, which, that's a step back. But they're working on, but the point is things are overall improving here in Vietnam. Whereas in the USA, things are just getting worse and worse. And it's spiraling. So anyway, that's what I would say.
It's so funny. And I do, what I would, if I have a chance to, talk to Biden, is that like, I just like ask him to Google Chengdu City in China to look at those pictures. It looked like in the sci-fi society. Yeah. It's how amazing it is. And they keep talking about China, this, China, that's like, just look at that and compare that to the USA.
The other thing you could do is, what's the ghost city? Just if you want to understand the nature of propaganda and the way so there's this city in China, I can't remember, but it's a brand new city they built, and there was all this propaganda in the Western media about how it's a ghost city. It's like, they built all these buildings and nobody lives in them. And this was a few years ago. And now it's like completely a bustling city, like because they built the city and then people moved into it. And a similar story is like when I was going through South Korea on a bicycle trip this was in 2000 and it must have been early 2013. I took a bicycle trip from Seoul to Busan, and I drove through the city, and it was like a brand new city in South Korea. And it was empty. It was like all these huge brand new buildings. It was totally empty. And I was like, well, that's weird. It's like a brand new like ghost town. I thought that, this was long before I heard anything about the China situation. And then like 2 years later in 2014, I did the same trip again, and I went through the same city, and lo and behold, there were like thousands and thousands of people there.
Well, the same in Vietnam. Like when we went to it's like in Hanoi a few years ago, we just went to a absolutely like empty place, but you like huge road highway through it, just like absolutely empty with like new buildings on the background, something like that. But yeah, I mean, in the matter of 1 or 2 years, people start like moving in there because there's already roads. So it was like when we build cities, we actually plan it for the next 30, 50 years.
Yeah, it's like Simplistic Linguistics says in the Twitch chat, planning an economy in a city? Amazing. Can you imagine planning?
City planning?
Okay, all right. We're about to move back to the RICO story, I promise. But I just want to get this. Okay, Luna made a video about the metro in Hanoi.
Oh, yeah.
And it's like, first of all, we went there in like the mid-afternoon on a weekday, and it was kind of empty.
Come
there weren't that many
it's
people.
Like Monday noon. Come on.
But people were like making comments like, "Wow, the metro's so empty. This is such a terrible planning. Like, I can't believe
this
it.
This is terrible, like idea because nobody's using it. Wow, Vietnam just wastes a bunch of money."
And this was like the first month that the metro was operating. Can you? If they opened the metro and on the very first day, every single hour of the day, it's completely swamped. That means that it was badly planned.
But at least 20 years late.
It means you didn't. It means you didn't do a good job, like planning for expandability and growth and that sort of thing. It's like it's good that they have extra capacity. It's actually good that you can like predict it and have some breathing room to build it up over time. Plus, it takes a long time for people to get used to using something like a metro.
Exactly.
People aren't just going to start using it.
It's
and
just like
advertising.
You have to put it out there.
Oh my God! I just realized something, Luna. Anti-communists are exactly like. Okay, this is me. I'm speaking now from the perspective of somebody who ran an advertising agency for several years. Anti-communists have the same mentality as small business owners who open up a brand new business, and then they call me on the phone and they say, "I opened up a restaurant. We've been open for a month, and I don't have any customers." What? It's like they think you just open the doors and people will just like immediately start knocking down your door to get in. It's like, no, you got to advertise, and you got to advertise for a long time. I used to tell small business owners, like, you have to start advertising ideally like 6 months before you open your doors.
Yeah.
And it's the same with because it takes time. And really what we're talking about here is dialectical materialism. Yeah. What we're really talking about here is understanding development. I didn't know about that at the time. I think I would have been a much more successful advertising executive if I understood dialectical materialism all the time. But it's all because some of the principles of advertising are really compatible with dialectical materialism because it's all about understanding development and understanding that it takes time.
How things influence each other.
Yeah. So, yeah, that's exactly what an advertising campaign is. We used to have a word for it. I can't remember, but the ways in which different advertising campaigns would reinforce each other. So it's like, you have a billboard, and then you have a radio campaign, and then you have newspaper ads or whatever, and they all like reinforce each other. That's just dialectical. They have a dialectical relationship with each other. Okay. If everyone understood dialectical materialism, it'd be a lot easier to have a lot of conversations. Anyway, all right.
Anyway,
and if you want to understand dialectical materialism better, where's the book, Luna?
Oh, it's in my working desk out there.
Luna was working with the book. Okay, well, you can go to Bannionhouse. Look at our producer, Grant. Good job.
Oh, wow. Good job,
Bannionhouse.org/shop, and you can get the Luna's translation of the curriculum of dialectical materialism from Vietnam. You can get the ebook for free at Bannionhouse.org/shop, or you can get the print copy if you prefer.
That link. See that link right there?
Yes.
Check it.
Check the link. All right. Now let's go back. Okay, let's go to the RICO. This is a very important story, so let's focus for a while on this. It's terrifying, to be honest. And then we have to try to get enough time to watch the Biden video. All right. The state is cracking down on anyone remotely associated with the Stop Cop City movement via Rolling Stone. On Tuesday morning, Georgia Attorney General Chris Carr announced that a state grand jury had indicted. Can this thing go away or not? Okay. State grand jury had indicted 61 people allegedly connected to the Defend the Atlanta Forest movement, slapping a serious and shocking slate of RICO charges onto a decentralized movement that has sought to derail the construction of a massive police training facility for nearly 2 years. Activists and civil rights groups worry that the indictment could set a dangerous anti-democratic precedent for cracking down on similar protest movements nationwide. The racketeering charges came amid an escalating months-long campaign to squash the protest movement opposing Atlanta's Cop City through a combination of brute force and drastic charges. Protesters active in the forest and around the Atlanta area have been charged with domestic terrorism, while more specific financial charges have been leveled against nonprofit workers connected to the movement. And don't forget that we also had our comrade shot in cold blood by the police
Yeah.
with
Tortuguita?
hands raised. Yeah.
Over 50
Comrade Tortuguita.
shots.
So, all right. So, yeah, exactly. Just brutal and a brutal assassination is what it was. There's no other way to put it. Many of those targeted in the past are also named in the RICO indictment, which has rocked the loose network of activists that have driven the DAF movement, sending members scrambling to find if their names had appeared on the list. It feels like for a long time now, we've been waiting for a ball to drop, getting a DAF activist who was not indicted, tells Rolling Stone. In a way, there's almost a sense of relief just to know that the state has played their cards now. That relief is scant consolation considering the broader scope of legal action leveled against protesters in Atlanta. Last December, Georgia prosecutors charged several individuals allegedly associated with the DAF movement with domestic terrorism, and an action that activists told Rolling Stone was a strategic political move meant to scare and intimidate current or prospective members of the movement, which we talked about that last time, right? The whole point is to scare people away, to bog people down with legal fees, to make people unemployable perhaps in the future just because of their names. Like if you Google somebody's name and then these domestic terrorism charges show up, like that's life ruining, right?
Yeah.
In January, a police raid on a DAF encampment inside Atlanta's Weelaunee Forest, the planned site of Cop City, ended in tragedy when Georgia State Patrol officers shot and assassinated. I don't want to say that word because I think YouTube does not like that word. Manuel Tortuguita Terran, a 26-year-old protester living full-time in the camp. Georgia prosecutors continued to level domestic terrorism charges against protesters for a variety of offenses ranging from documented vandalism of corporate property and police vehicles to far more innocuous actions like participating in a music festival that took place in the forest. And I know for a fact, okay, from talking to people in Stop Cop City, and you could believe this or not, I don't really care. I trust these accounts. There are definitely situations in which the police vandalized their own shit and said that the protesters did it.
Yeah.
So the cops in Atlanta are like rotten to the core. There's just no doubt about that. And when we drove through the area and they had the cops just stationed like every 50 meters or something like that, it was just, it's the most scary security theater I've ever seen in my life. And I went to the border between South and North Korea. Like it was more creepy than the heavy military presence at the South and North Korea border in South Korea when I went there.
Sounds like an authoritarian state.
See, that's my thing. It's 100,000% authoritarian. Like capitalism is so authoritarian. If you really believe in this framework of authoritarianism, how can you possibly say that the USA is not authoritarian? How can you possibly say that?
Yeah.
And this is all against the will of the people, by the way. Nobody wants this.
Yeah, nobody wants to be, policed.
Except for the capitalists.
Oh, yeah.
They want to have their cop gang on their side. All right, continuing. There was a sense that if the state was willing to go this far, to tell these kinds of lies about protesters and to advance these really intense charges, there's no telling what they would do. Marlene Kautz, a board member of the Atlanta Solidarity Fund, told Rolling Stone in January. Kautz's worries were not unfounded, both for the movement and for himself. This spring, Georgia authorities' brute force tactic gave way to a more targeted campaign to disrupt support networks that local and national activists had created to serve the movement, which we've told you about on the stream and encouraged you to support in the past. In late May, a heavily armed SWAT team arrested 3 board members of the Atlanta Solidarity Fund, including Kautz, charging them with money laundering and charity fraud for their work, which collected and distributed funds to support or bail out arrested protesters. Kautz and the other 2 ASF members were also named in Tuesday's RICO indictment. This is a naked political attempt to criminalize political dissent. Lyra Foster, an attorney who is representing several defendants of the RICO indictment and in ongoing legal cases involving DAF protesters, tells Rolling Stone. Some of the defendants in this case are activists. Some are people who just showed up to protest or a concert. The indictments characterize this loose political movement as some intricate conspiracy going back to the murder of George Floyd. Indeed, the Georgia Attorney General's indictment opens with an exhaustive description of anarchist theory and philosophy. And we told you this from the beginning. And this, okay, listen, anarchists, of course, pay attention. Marxists also pay attention.
Yeah.
Okay, because there's one thing that you really, really need to understand here. No matter where you fall on the like communist chart, you know, this affects you. And by the way, if you're like a Marxist Leninist or a Maoist or whatever, you don't think that the state is going to like lump you in with anarchists here?
They will, you know, equate us all together. They will lump us all together into extreme.
Yeah, extremism. I have a whole video. If you go to non-compete, youtube.com/non-compete, watch my video on
It's
extremism.
no different.
I predicted this years ago. The fact of the matter is, they don't really care if you're an anarchist or a Marxist or whatever. They see you all as extremists who want to take down capitalism. And even if we don't have solidarity with each other, right? Even if we don't always get along in terms of anarchists and Marxists and all these different little camps, they lump us together and they see us as one threat, and they will treat us accordingly.
Exactly.
Okay, so you might be seeing this and you might think, oh, I'm not an anarchist, this doesn't matter to me. Well, it just so happens that with the Stop Cop City movement, it's mostly anarchists that are involved with this. But if the Marxists come forward and have some similar campaign where you're the predominant group, right? Or if Maoists do it and you're the predominant group or whatever, or, you know, whatever, they're going to lump you in with the same umbrella, and they're going to use RICO charges against you the same as they're using it against these anarchists. That's why it's very important. Even if you don't believe in tactical unity or left unity or whatever the hell you want to call it, even if you don't believe in that, you'd better understand and recognize that it's in your interest to support these people.
Yeah.
Okay? Because they are the test balloon for rolling this out system-wide. And if they can nail these people on RICO charges, you best bet they're coming for your party or your organization, no matter what you call yourself or think of yourself as.
I mean, Dorian Sapiens has a good point. Anarchist is just a current buzzword that means scary bad guy.
Right. Now, there are some shitty people who call themselves anarchists.
Yeah,
that's that's a totally different.
Shitty will call themselves LML. Come on.
Yeah, I know. I'm just saying. But anyway, but the point of the matter is, we need to have solidarity with Stop Cop City, no matter what political tendency or ideology you have. I really strongly encourage you to seek solidarity with these people. And I'll tell you, when we were in Atlanta, one of the big groups that was that we met with and they were supporting them a lot was CPUSA. You know, and there were not just CPUSA, but there are a lot of different parties, organizations, and groups that are supporting Stop Cop City. The reason I'm harping on this is because I've seen people say, "Oh, this is just anarchist idealism or blah 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 blah." It's like, no, actually, stopping Cop City is good for all of us. I think that's pretty objectively true.
Yeah, and if they are true democracy, they would have to listen to the people over there, which is over 75% of people in Atlanta don't want Cop City to be built there.
Right. And they're trying to even stop people from having a petition to get it on the ballot because they don't want the people to vote on it. Exactly. They don't want the people to vote on it.
What a great democracy.
So anyway, and by the way, a victory here would be monumental for our cause. Okay, monumental. And whereas a victory for the pigs filing this RICO case against us would be devastating. It would be such a bad precedent. And it would set us back so much. So we really need to all pay attention to this. Okay, I'm going to keep reading the article. The Georgia Attorney General's indictment opens with an exhaustive description of anarchist theory and philosophy. They do a decent job of explaining the ideology, one activist tells me, sounding surprised. That philosophical background is used as a primer to allege that common actions like mutual aid and solidarity, this is where it gets scary. The RICO charges allege that mutual aid and solidarity are linked to the violent tactics used by some members of the movement against law enforcement and privately owned construction equipment, which Foster said could be used to criminalize nearly any organizing effort against unjust public policies. Do you remember, if you watch my video on extremism, you will see a document issued by Joe Biden, which lumps fascists and Nazis in with anarchists and communists. It lumps them all in under the umbrella term of extremists. And this is teaching material that they use to teach like Department of Homeland Security and the Navy and all kinds of other military industrial police organizations. They're training them to see fascists and anti-fascists as one and the same.
Yeah, sounds like a horseshoe theory again.
It's 100% like codified horseshoe theory to crack down on communists and anarchists and lump us in with fascists and Nazis, so that the whole, there's a lot of reasons why they want to do this. One, they want cops cracking down on all of us. Two, they want the public scared of us the same way that they might be scared of Nazis. There's a propagandistic element there. So anyway, civil rights activists were similarly concerned after the passage of Georgia's domestic terrorism law in the wake of the 2015 Charleston church massacre, and this law has been previously used against members of the DAF movement. Now, let's take a little history. Let's take a break here and look at history real quick. If you look at the history of the House Un-American Activities Commission, right? In the 1930s, Congress started to investigate initially German American Nazis and the KKK.
Yes.
And communists. They lumped them all in together. Okay? So in the 1930s, in the USA, the 20s and 30s, they were saying like, okay, let's look at all these un-American organizations that are like violent and stuff like that, right? And they lumped in and they had investigations on Nazis, the KKK, communists, and anarchists, and all these different groups. And they lumped them all in together. And then by the time the 50s rolled around after World War II, they kind of like stopped giving a shit about the fascists and the KKK and the Nazis, and it became the Red Scare.
Yep.
So the foundations were like, oh yeah, we'll look at all these groups together and we'll lump them all in together. But then after World War II, and once the Soviet Union starts to get a lot more power, and they have the nuclear bomb, and they have all this, they're starting to actually become a global threat to capitalism. They're like, oh, we're not worried about the Nazis anymore. We're just going to exclusively use all this groundwork we've laid and all this precedent we've laid and all this legislation we've rolled out, and we're going to just harass and imprison and blackball communists. Okay? The same exact formula is being used here. I guarantee you, mark my words, they're lumping us in together so that they can eradicate the enemies of capital. That's exactly what they want to do. They want to have another McCarthy era. That's exactly what they're ramping up for. I promise you. And it's not just the Republicans. It's definitely
also, it's a way to defame us, from people who don't know better. They would look at us the same as those horrible KKK and fascists and Nazis.
Yeah, that's what. They want us
to. PR.
They want the general public at large to think of us as in the same category as fascists and Nazis. That's absolutely what they want to do. The overbroad use of domestic terrorism charges served to intimidate the people of the state and silence their voices. Corey Isaacson, the legal director of the Georgia ACLU, told Rolling Stone in January. Many of the state's domestic terrorism charges and RICO indictments target members of the DAF movement who joined the protests after residing in another state, furthering Georgia authorities' narrative. As this indictment shows, looking the other way when violence occurs is not an option in Georgia, Georgia AG Chris Carr said in a statement. If you come to our state and shoot a police officer, I don't think that's happened. That hasn't happened. Throw Molotov cocktails, that hasn't happened. Set fire to police vehicles. I know of one instance where the cops set fire to their own police vehicle and then blamed the protesters for it. Damaged construction equipment. Who gives a shit about that? Vandalized private homes and businesses. Okay. Citation. And terrorize their occupants. You can and will be held accountable. Okay, back to the scary stuff. Carr's indictment lists the DAF movement's various social media profiles and websites, as well as the common practice of passing out zines and leaflets at public events. And remember that somebody just got arrested for handing out leaflets like a few weeks ago, in Atlanta. They're calling this all racketeering activity.
Gosh.
So literally handing out printed material is being incorporated into this RICO and being couched as racketeering, as organized crime. It makes absolutely no sense. The indictment attempts to build a link between the various funding networks connected to DAF, including bail funds and the violent tactics of some individuals it associates with the movement, basing many of these links on small dollar financial transactions. So like if you give $5, $10, $20, then suddenly you're like in with the kingpins of this RICO, investigate, whatever. Bail funds and other mutual networks have been integral to social justice movements across the country for decades, meaning the outcome of Georgia's RICO case could set a dangerous precedent for future protests nationwide. It already does. This has to get struck down. We have to make sure that this doesn't go through. Activists, meanwhile, see the charges as a perverse application of a law meant to target organized crime. I want to see RICO investigation into the Atlanta Police Department.
You're right.
I really want to see that. And into the Atlanta City Council and Mayor's office, since they're doing everything they can to stop democracy.
Yeah, right.
How is that not an organized criminal activity? In my opinion, I mean, come on. RICO is about trying to stop a criminal enterprise that is trying to make money, Red Pixel, a DAF activist, tells Rolling Stone. I just want to say that's utterly ridiculous. There's many people involved in the movement who are struggling not just for a world without Cop City, but a world without commodities too. We do not care about money. In recent months, the threat of further domestic terrorism charges and the legacy of the brutal police raids that killed Tortuguita have limited the movement's direct activity at Cop City's proposed site. An extensive police cordon and consistent patrols, which I've seen with my own eyes, have allowed development on the site to begin, and dozens of acres of the forest have already been clear-cut. But activists aren't giving up. Prior to the RICO charges, the movement was coordinating with other political groups and networks to mount a petition campaign to put the future of Cop City directly in the Atlanta residents' ballot in November. Activists say the petition has easily passed the 70,000 signature threshold for inclusion, and I just hope that that goes through, and I hope we could just stop it at the ballot box, but, you know, they're going to do every damn thing they can to prevent any kind of democratic agency for the people of Atlanta from occurring. So that's that. We need to keep our eyes on this, folks. It's very, very important that we keep our eyes on this because, like I said, this affects one and all of us. And if you don't think it does, you need to look deeper into it. That's all I can say. I have a video on Stop Cop City at Non-Compete. You can go check out the Atlanta Free Journalists. There are a lot of different resources to learn more about this. Educate yourself and understand why this is something we all need to pay attention to and a cause that we all need to support.
Yeah.
So, all right. We've got the main story now.
Yes.
We've got about 40 minutes. That's enough time to dig into this a little bit. I had to clean up the audio for this because it was just so bad. Oh, crap. Hey, Grant, you with me? Can you put the link that I had in the private chat earlier to the Google Drive link back in the private chat? I guess I logged in too late to see that link.
I don't see it.
I know, because we logged in too late.
Oh.
It should be on Grant's, though, hopefully, if Grant was logged into. Do you have that? Or it's in your Google chat, too, Grant. So, all right, let me set this up. Joe Biden's in Vietnam.
Ta-da, ta-da!
I need the Twitter link, too. There was a Twitter link that I put in. Do you have those, Grant? Okay. All right, so we'll set this up. So, okay, Joe Biden is in Vietnam right after the G20 summit, which I think it's one funny thing about that is how China just didn't go. I think that's really funny.
I mean, they sent a different guy, but not Xi Jinping himself.
I just think it's funny. It's like, I could tell that BRICS is becoming a more of a priority than
absolutely
this rinky-dink G20
right.
with all these failing bourgeois democracies. So all right, I got the drive link. I just need the Twitter link now. I want to start with the Twitter link. Do you not have that?
You can give it like, no.
Oh my gosh.
No thanks.
Yeah, no thanks.
No.
All right, so basically, Grant, it's Luna's thread on Twitter about.
I got it.
It's her most recent thread. Can you put it?
I got it. Yeah, yes.
Put it in the private chat. Put it in the private chat.
Okay, got it.
So, all right, there's good news and there's bad news, I guess we could say, about this visit. Luna and I were wondering for the last couple of weeks if they're actually going to have an upgrade to the USA's partnership with Vietnam. And if you don't understand the way this works, I'll lay it out for you real quick, and Luna can tell me if I do anything wrong. There are multiple levels of partnership that Vietnam has with other countries. Yeah. The highest level is like the Great Friendship, which they only have with Laos.
Laos and Cuba.
Laos and Cuba. Okay. All right. And then beneath that is the. Is that the strategic?
Comprehensive strategic somehow.
The comprehensive strategic. And how many countries are in that?
About 5.
Is that the one that USA just got? Okay. All right. So only 2 countries have the very, very highest slot. They never talk about that in the Western news. But the fact of the matter is, only Laos and Cuba are in the very highest spot of the partnership level. And then under that there's the strategic partnership level, and under that there's like a partnership level. Yeah. Most countries are in the partnership level.
Yeah.
And the USA was in the partnership level for a long time. And basically, just today, they signed with the USA as strategic partnership level.
Yeah,
Now, it's very
comprehensive
important to
strategy.
understand this. China, Russia, India, and South Korea already had comprehensive strategic partnership status
Yes.
with
Long
Vietnam.
time ago. China was our first strategic partnership partner. It was like signing in 2008.
Yeah. It's also very important to understand this. It is not a military alliance. If it was, it doesn't make any sense because the whole point, like, okay, what the Western media and what a lot of Western pundits and even a lot of ultra leftists want you to think is that in signing this strategic partnership with the USA, Vietnam is now like a military ally with the USA against China. But that doesn't make any sense because it's the exact same partnership level that that Vietnam has had with China for 20 years now.
Yeah.
So how could it boggles my mind. It's like you just don't know what you're freaking talking about if you think that this is an alliance with the USA against China, because Vietnam already has and has had the same level of partnership with China
for like 15 years at least.
So like how could you have the same, it would be like Vietnam is an ally with China against the USA and now with the USA against China. It's not the way that it works. Yeah. And they make it very clear, even in the speech given at the signing of this partnership, they said very specifically that this is not a military alliance and that Vietnam does not make military alliances with any country against any other country. It's a big part of the foreign policy of Vietnam.
This is the Vietnamese comrade, the detailed information. China, 2008, we signed that. Russia, 2012, and India, 2016, and South Korea, 2022. And the US is the latest one, 2023. And by the way, do not forget that Vietnam just applied to join BRICS last month. So
yeah, right, exactly. So Vietnam's trying to get into BRICS. I mean, okay, you have to really understand Vietnam. Okay, like this is so frustrating because people don't get this. Vietnam has a really sharp foreign policy department. They're when it comes to foreign relations, Vietnam does a really, really good job. And they have a few rules. One of them is very strong that Vietnam does not ally with any nation against any other nation. That's very, very clearly said. Okay. And the strategic partnership thing, I think Americans have this like war brain.
Yeah.
We have a war brain.
So strategic
when we
means
hear
something
strategic,
like
we think it's like a war strategy kind of thing. It's economic strategy. It's a trade partnership. Okay.
Yeah. It's
a
just
trade
mean
deal.
more trade. End of story.
Period. Now, so Luna, let's walk through Luna has a Twitter thread on this. And oh, there we go. Finally, got the knitter one. If you're not familiar with Knitter, it's a great way to because Twitter basically is paywalled now.
Oh gosh,
but you can get around that now with this service called knitter.net.
Hopefully, we just applied to join BRIC last month. That's like August. Hopefully, the next 1 or 2 years, so the application will be approved and we can officially join. But that is, the procedure.
See, in the USA, really. Okay, well, okay. Let's read Luna's Twitter thread first. Okay, so Luna said Vietnam and the U.S. announced that the two countries will upgrade our relationship to strategic partnership for peace, cooperation, and stable development. Does this mean Vietnam has become a U.S. ally in a military sense? Nope. Now here's what it really means. Many Westerners think that the new strategic partnership with the USA is an alliance against China, and that is what the U.S. government wants to imply. But we have the same strategic partnership with China since 2008. Also have same strategic partnership with Russia, India, and ROK. In the same speech announcing the partnership, the General Secretary of the Communist Party of Vietnam reaffirmed Vietnam's consistent 4-No policy. What is that policy? Here's Vietnam's 4-No economic policy. 1, do not allow any country to put military bases in our territory. 2, do not join any military alliance. 3, do not ally with any country against other countries. 4, do not use violence or threaten to use violence in international relations.
There you go.
And it's like a peace footing because Vietnam was ravaged by war for decades. They don't want to get involved with like adventurism and secret alliances and all this kind of shit. They want to have peace. They want to have peaceful relations every day. They want to be friends with all these nations. That's the official policy of Vietnam. I'm not saying that. That's what they say.
Exactly. And here's the full name of this partnership. It is called the comprehensive strategic partnership for peace, cooperation, and stable development.
All right, exactly. So it's not a military alliance at all. Reiterating the four no's policy while signing the partnership was an extremely meaningful move. Vietnam wants to signal strongly and immediately to the USA and the world that this does not imply a military-oriented alliance. So no matter how Western media talk about this new partnership, this does not mean Vietnam is any closer to being a US ally. It just means more trade between the countries. And Vietnam's strategic implies economic strategy, unlike the USA, where strategy implies warfare. And then here's an older thread that Luna has, on the same topic. Now, what really annoys the hell out of me is that so many people were infantile in response to this, to Luna's thread here. All Luna did was relate facts. Nothing Luna said can be contested.
No.
It's a fact.
Absolutely no.
Okay? And then people are like, oh, this is copium. Cope harder, Luna. And it's like, okay, first of all, cope about what?
About what?
That Vietnam signed a trade deal.
Yeah.
It's not like Vietnam just started trading with the USA. Vietnam's been trading with the USA for decades now.
And we signed the same deal with the USA that the other we did 15 years ago with China.
And second of all, this is a totally oriented towards development of Vietnam.
Yeah.
Like, it's not at all, I mean, it's not at all like a military partnership. It's not against China.
Exactly.
And they already have the same...
As a matter of fact, we do not exist in a vacuum. We need to trade with other countries.
I'll say that.
To
Okay.
exist.
Does it rub me the wrong way? Does it annoy me? Do I wish that it wasn't the case that Vietnam elevated its partnership level with the USA? Just because I don't like the USA. I don't like the USA.
I don't like USA.
I'm from the USA. I don't like it. I've got a video about why I hate the USA flag. I'm not a big fan of the USA, to put it very mildly. So does it rub me the wrong way? Do I wish that it weren't the case that Vietnam was in this position where they upgraded their relationship? Sure. Yeah, I'll admit I have some feelings about it. Okay. I have some fifis that get hurt by that. But here's the thing. My aesthetic proclivity that I just don't like anybody being nice to the USA does not trump Vietnam's need to develop. Okay? The fact of the matter is that Vietnam doesn't have all of the material resources that it needs to build a prosperous society. And this is true of any country in the world, actually, including the USA. There's no country in the world that can just completely isolate itself and do okay. You need things like medicines. There's different kinds of things that, Vietnam can't manufacture. There's different technological processes Vietnam doesn't have access to.
Even if we don't need anything from the USA, which is not true, we need the microchips, by the way. I mean, it's just like, just look at the, nearly like 5,800 nuclear warheads that the USA has.
Right. I mean, look, running a nation is extremely complicated, okay? It's difficult. It's complicated, especially like international relationships, okay? And Vietnam has made it clear that they don't want to side with any country against any other country. They want to be friends to all countries. That's the Vietnamese position. China, by the way, has the same position. China puts out articles all the time. If you go to like their Global Times or any of their, communist organs or outlets or anything like that, they're constantly beating this drum that international diplomacy is not a zero-sum game.
Exactly.
And that this is China's position, that there's no reason that any country has to choose one country over another.
Exactly.
That's China's official position.
And we don't have to develop on the price of other nations.
Right.
We can always just cooperate and co-develop.
You can have mutual aid with other nations, right? The only country in this little three-party configuration that wants you to think that it's a zero-sum game and that you have to pick a side between China and the USA is the USA.
Yes.
The USA wants the world to think that you have to side with either China or the USA. And that if you don't side with the USA, you're an enemy of the USA, basically. Most countries don't want to live in that world. Most countries don't want to exist on that basis. So it really bothers the hell out of me when people who claim to be Marxists especially have such an infantile, simplistic, baby-brained way of looking at international politics that Vietnam, realizing that they have they need certain resources from the USA, and there are certain ways in which the USA gatekeeps resources from other countries as well. And so maintaining diplomatic ties that are productive with the USA, I just don't know how you can fault Vietnam for that, because it doesn't it just doesn't seem as cool to you. Like, it's not, I don't know. I just don't understand it. Like, What is the damn problem? You think that Vietnamese people should like go without electricity and be hungry and have like and suffer materially
Just
because
to maintain our purity.
yeah, your ideological purity test isn't being met. Like it's just wild to me. I don't understand it.
Yeah.
I'm not saying that I love this. You know, I like I said, it rubs me the wrong way. But who fucking cares at the end of the day? If this needs to be done for Vietnam to develop, then who am I to tell them no? Yeah, I put one in the swear jar. Sorry, I got a little emotional about this because it annoys me. I mean, it makes me understand where Lenin was coming from with that whole thing about what is it? An infantile disorder.
The infantile disorder.
It is an infantile disorder. You're literally saying like, but I don't think it's cool. The Vietnam should be cool, and they should tell the USA that they're imperialists and they should F off.
What do you think is cool or not cool? Actually, it doesn't matter at all when we consider the life of tens of millions of people. So
now, is this me apologizing for the USA? No, of course not.
yeah.
Is the USA going to use this cynically to try to pull one over on Vietnam?
Yeah.
Is the USA going to continue to try to destabilize? Don't forget, and we haven't talked about this a lot on the show, and we're not going to talk about it a lot because there's still a lot that we don't know about this. But the USA, in some way, supported a terrorist attack in Vietnam just a couple months ago.
Just happened in June.
There were definitely people who were affiliated with the USA involved in that situation. And mark my words, the Vietnamese people haven't forgotten about that.
Yeah.
And by the way, there's just been an article in the Global Times, not the Global Times, in Tap Chi Kong San, which Luna ran on stream like 3 or 4 weeks ago, talking about how the USA's whole thing when it comes to international diplomacy is to try to dominate the world.
Yes.
You don't think the Vietnamese communists are aware of this? You think that you see something that they don't hear? You don't think the Vietnamese thought about this?
And also, here's the thing too. There is a reason why the person in Vietnam that is meeting with Biden right now is actually not the president of Vietnam, though they are same level. The person is meeting with Biden right now is the General Secretary of the Communist Party of Vietnam. And he was the one who wrote the article that I read.
Yeah. And it's like people have this very limited degree of knowledge and information. They don't, and understanding, but they act like they're freaking experts. They act like, no, I stopped that. I paused. They act like they're experts. And they're not. And it just really rubs me the wrong way. Anyway, I wanted to get that out of the way before we go into the Joe Biden speech, because this speech by Joe Biden is one of the worst speeches I've ever seen in my entire life. Yeah. And I used to be involved in the Small Business Chamber of Commerce. So like I've seen some really terrible speeches. This almost, I think it might take the cake. So, all right. I did have to clean up the audio, by the way, because in addition to Joe Biden being just sleepy and out of it and generally incomprehensible, the audio was just awful. So I did scrub it a little bit. It's still not 100%, but maybe we can understand it. Luna, do you have your headphones in?
Yes.
All right. Hopefully you can hear this. Hopefully we can hear this. If not, it's going to be.
I refused to listen to it last night.
I know. Nobody wants to listen to this right before bed. I powered through it. All right. So here we go.
It is evening, isn't it?
It is evening, isn't it? I might have to translate.
The world in 5 days is interesting. Well,
humble brag.
You know, there's that one of my staff members said, remember the famous song, Good Morning Vietnam?
What?
Remember the famous song, Good Morning Vietnam? That's not a song.
It's
what a radio announcer said in Vietnam during the war.
Yes.
As made famous by Robin Williams. Good morning, Vietnam.
I am pretty sure that this brought back some PTSD.
Now, there's also what with Joe Biden?
No, Joe Biden. What Joe Biden said will bring back some PTSD from people who like traumatized during that time.
Well, there is a song called "Hello Vietnam."
Oh yeah.
So I'm wondering
is this a movie called Good Morning Vietnam, something like that too?
Yeah, that's about the radio announcer. Anyway, this is silly, but moving on.
Good evening, Vietnam.
Good evening, Vietnam. Okay.
Okay. Good evening. Okay.
Yeah, because it wasn't even the morning when he did this.
Before I began, I want to express my sadness.
You have like a team of crack speechwriters, and the best they can come up with is "Good Morning Vietnam," like as your opening. Okay.
By the loss of life and devastation caused by the earthquake in Morocco.
Oh, that is a good point, though. By the way, the earthquake in Morocco. We haven't talked about that, but that is something we should. I hope if we have any comrades there that you're safe.
Yeah.
And if we can support you in any way, let us know. I'm going to skip ahead a little bit because this part's.
With ASEAN last year, and the engagement with the Pacific Island Forum. Our strengthened alliances with the Philippines and AUKUS, partnership with Australia and the United Kingdom.
Okay, he's talking about his partnerships with Australia, the United Kingdom, AUKUS, right?
Yeah.
Now, there's a point in the speech, I don't know if he said it already or not. He might say it in a second, where he says, this is wild, okay? Because AUKUS is something that really rubs me the wrong way. The fact that it exists at all. It's like, why is the United Kingdom involved in this Pacific military? Now, that is a military alliance, okay? Mm-hmm. The strategic partnership that Vietnam has with the USA is not a military alliance. AUKUS is 100% a military alliance between Australia, the United Kingdom, and the USA. Now, something that Biden says here is the USA is a Pacific nation and we're not going anywhere. Mm-hmm. That's almost word for word what he says. So Biden is setting up the ideological position that the USA has every right to be a force in all across the Pacific in Asia, by virtue of having an ocean touch its coast, and I guess having our colonies in like Hawaii and Guam and that sort of thing. Yeah. So just a totally imperialist, and this is the Democrat. Yeah. The Democrats are supposed to be the ones who are like anti-imperialist, right? That's a load. Don't ever believe that, especially after you watch the speech.
Oh my goodness.
Our elevated Quad engagement with India, Australia, and Japan, and the Indo-Pacific Economic Framework for Prosperity, and all the effort is advanced.
The Indo-Pacific Framework for Prosperity is one of the really lousy attempts at countering BRICS.
Yeah, right.
And they're also trying to build a new Silk Road, by the way. Have you heard about this? They want to build a train. The USA wants to build a train system in the Middle East that it controls from India through the Middle East. It's like they can't even come up with any original ideas. They're just like, well, we're going to build a Silk Road too.
Day one of my administration to demonstrate to our Indo-Pacific partners and the world, the United States is a Pacific nation, and we're not going anywhere.
Please go.
Let me also speak to significant business I've done in India during the G20 summit. This was an important moment for the United States to demonstrate our global leadership and our commitment to solving the challenges that matter most to people around.
All right. First of all, you're not global leaders, the USA. You're global bullies. Let's get that clear. And second of all, you're not solving any problems. You cause all of the problems in the world.
I can't stand this.
It's just absurd. It's absurd.
Investing in inclusive growth and sustainable development, addressing the climate crisis, strengthening food security and education, advancing global health and health security.
We don't even have health care in the USA, nor food security in the USA. How are you going to go around and tell the rest of the world how to deal with these problems when you can't even solve them in your own country at all? Vietnam has 45 times fewer people per capita die of malnutrition than the USA.
45 times.
How is the USA going to come into Vietnam and talk to them about food security or healthcare? Vietnam has almost universal healthcare.
Yeah,
virtually every Vietnamese person has full healthcare coverage.
Yes.
Which cannot be said for the USA.
We showed up ready to
The
work.
USA should be begging Vietnam for advice on these issues, actually.
It's true.
They should be like, please help us. What, Grant? Oh, sorry. I'm sorry.
We showed the
It's
world
infuriating.
the United
Everything he
States
says
was a
pisses me
partner
off.
with a positive vision for our shared future. As a G20, at the G20, we made progress on issues like multilateral development bank reform to get.
What in the hell?
What in the world?
I just full-sized it and it killed it.
Those nations that are neither poor nor wealthy but could qualify before, debt relief, and increased infrastructure needs, not only in the global south but other parts of the world as well. We forward to groundbreaking new partnership that will connect India to Europe with the Middle East and Israel.
So the USA's
by rail and
Silk
by
Road
shipment,
alternative.
and energy supplies and digital connections that are going to open up untold opportunities for transformative economic investment on that entire card. We've also discussed Russia's brutal and illegal war in Ukraine. There was sufficient agreement in the room on the need for just and lasting peace that upholds the principles of the UN Charter and respects sovereignty and territorial integrity. I want to once again thank Prime Minister Modi for his leadership.
Modi, thanking the fascist. Thanking Modi the fascist.
Mm.
So this is the liberal fascist bargain, 100%.
Mm-hmm.
There's no contesting the fact that Modi is just an overt fascist, right? I mean, can we all agree on that?
Yeah.
And we got Joe Biden, the liberal Democrat, thanking him. Just like the liberal Democrats propped up the puppet government in Vietnam during the war and then the lead up to the war. The liberals always support fascists, especially in this international context where you're talking about like imperialism and colonialism.
Hosted the G20. He and I have had substantial discussions about how we're going to continue to strengthen the partnership between India and the United States, building on the Prime Minister's visit to the White House last June. And as I always do, I raised the importance of respecting human rights and the vital role of civil society and the free press have in building a strong and prosperous country.
Did I hear human rights and free press?
Yep. Which Modi is absolutely trampling on.
Uh-huh.
But they want to act like it's socialist countries.
And we've gotten a lot of important work done, and I'm looking forward to another good day tomorrow here in Vietnam. And now I will take your questions. Let me see, they told me they gave me 5 people here.
Let that old man speak.
Anita Reuters.
Thank you for taking my question, Mr. President.
There you are. Good to
Hi.
see you. Sorry.
Last week, China questioned the quote sincerity of the Biden administration.
I'm sorry, the what?
Sincerity.
The sincerity
Right.
The sincerity of the Biden.
of the Biden administration, and accused the United States of containing China while pushing for diplomatic talks. How would you respond to that? And do you think President Xi is being sincere about getting the relationship back on track as he bans Apple from China?
Well, look, first of all,
So basically, she asked if said that China has accused the Biden administration of not being sincere and wanting to like basically heal the relationship with China, and then said, "Do you think that China's being Xi Jinping is being sincere about wanting to mend the relationship with the USA?"
I am sincere about getting the relationship right. And one of the things that is going on now is China's beginning to change some of the rules of the game.
China's changing the rules of the game. What you know what that means?
For breaks, changing the
Right.
rules.
The rules of the game are that the USA runs the show.
The USA is the ruler.
Yeah.
And now they're changing it.
This is like a mafia boss coming and going like, you're breaking the rules, kid. You're not. You
have to say it as Tawny's voice.
You're coloring outside of the lines. So it's like, yeah, that's exactly what they're talking about here. They're saying that China is challenging the hegemony of the USA around the world. That's what breaking the rules means. Because what is China? Okay, I'm not going to say China has like a perfectly clean nose.
Mm-hmm.
There's the situation with the islands in the with Vietnam and the Philippines and many other countries where, in my opinion, China is behaving poorly. Okay, I'm not going to say China's like totally perfect or anything like that.
Absolutely.
But compared to the USA, really, you're going to come in and lecture China when you still hold colonial territories in Guam and Hawaii and in fact the entire nation of the USA.
Guatemala still.
Yeah. So anyway, let's keep watching.
And so one of the things we talked about, for example, is that they're now talking about making sure that no the Chinese government can use a Western cell phone, those kinds of things. And so really what this trip is about is less about containing China. I don't want to contain China. I just want to make sure we have a relationship with China that is on the up and up, squared away. Everybody knows what it's all about. And one of the ways you do that is you make sure that we are talking about the same things. And I think that
what does that even mean? Make sure we're talking about the same thing.
Yeah.
Tried to do
No one knows what you're talking about, Joe.
I talked with a number of us
I'm sorry, it was
about this for the last-
Guantanamo Bay.
this
Yeah,
6
Guantanamo Bay.
months, is
I was wondering what you
we have
were
an
referring to.
opportunity to strengthen alliances around the world to maintain stability. That's what this trip is all about. Having India cooperate much more with the United States, be closer to the United States, Vietnam being closer to the United States, it's not about containing China. It's about having a stable base in the Indo-Pacific.
He
What?
just said it.
What did he say?
He said the quiet part out loud.
He said it. What did he say? I couldn't understand him.
He said it's not about containing China. It's
Oh.
about building a stable base in the Indo-Pacific region. A stable base for the USA.
Oh yeah, it's
imperial
not about
and its
containing
empire.
China. Yeah, sure.
It's about
Sure.
no. He said what it is. It's about building a base for the empire of the USA.
Exactly.
That's honest. He's being honest there.
The two parts of the sentence he just said just like conflict with each other.
That's
and,
true.
And
Yeah,
the second part is the real intention here.
that's absolutely true. It's a built-in contradiction. Oh, we're not trying to contain China. We're just trying to build a base around them. That's
Yeah,
not
right.
containment. We just want to have a base that encircles China
Mm.
in the Indo-Pacific.
And for example, when I was spending a lot of time talking with President Xi, he asked why was I going to have the Quad, meaning Australia, India, Japan, the United States. And I said to maintain stability. It's not about isolating China. It's about
No.
making sure the rules of the road, everything from airspace and space in the ocean, and the international rules of the road are abided by. And so, and I hope that, I think that Prime Minister Xi has some difficulties right now.
Okay, this is where it gets really propagandistic. So this is the line that Biden tries to thread throughout this whole thing.
Mm.
China's having such a hard time right now. You know, they're having economic problems and poor people can't get jobs, and Xi's got his hands full. That's why we can't work together right now, because she's so busy dealing with all these problems. It's like, well, you know what, Joe? It sounds to me like you're saying Xi is doing what you should be doing. Because guess what? The USA has a terrible economy right now. The USA, poor people can't get jobs. The USA, people don't have food stability. They don't have health care. So you're saying that Xi is so busy trying to fix the problems in China. I guess you've got all this free time?
Right.
Do you get what I'm saying? Like, you're acting like the USA doesn't have all the exact same problems you're listing. And then you're acting like, oh, you could just kick back and right. It's not my fault that I'm not meeting with Xi. I got all the time in the world, but she's so busy trying to fix the problems in China. We don't do that in America. We don't fix the problems.
Exactly. You don't even recognize your own problems.
We profit off of the problems.
Exactly.
There's some economic difficulties working its way through. I want to see China succeed economically. I don't want to see it succeed by the rules.
Succeed by the rules.
The
Succeed where we get our cut.
next question was to Bloomberg.
Mr. President, following up on your comments on China and the economy, you recently called China's economy a ticking time bomb. Do you believe the country's slowdown could risk destabilizing the global economy or causing China to be more aggressive defensively?
Say the first part of the question again. This fan is going on. So
No worries. Do you believe the country's slowdown in growth could risk destabilizing the global economy or cause China to be more aggressive defensively, including with Taiwan? And separately, sir, are you worried about the meeting between President Putin and Kim Jong-un, if that could mean Russia has more gains in the war in Ukraine?
Look, I think China has a difficult economic problem right now for a whole range of reasons that relate to international growth and lack thereof, and the policies that China has followed. And so,
I mean, like, this the lack of self-awareness, or I don't know. But who is this for? Are they trying to show the Vietnamese people that, like, oh, we're all stable and we're doing great? Like, do they think that the Vietnamese people are going to buy that? Or what are they trying to do here? Do they think that the American people are going to say, like, they're going to look at this and think, oh, well, we might have it kind of bad right now, but at least we're not as bad as China. It's like, I'm sorry?
Excuse me, what? Like, do you really, if they really think that, so amount indoctrination. is enormous.
Well, the
here.
amount of indoctrination in the USA is enormous. So I guess maybe this works. I guess this works on some liberals, especially like
I
older
mean,
liberals.
true. The people who could never travel out of the country to see actually things look like.
Yeah.
They never even bothered to go to the Google and try to Google some image from China.
Yeah, if you get all of your information from the Western news and then you watch
like
this,
Fox
then
News.
I guess that everything Biden says. See, that's the thing. You got to understand this, especially if you've been a communist for a while. You can start to like lose touch yourself in a way, in the sense that you'll start to hear things or see things differently than other people hear and see them. Perfect example. Last night, I told Luna, Luna and I have been a little stressed out lately. We got a lot going on. And I was like, Luna, you know what would be great? Let's decompress and let's watch Downfall. It'll be great. It'll make us feel better. Now, if you don't know what Downfall is, it's a German movie about the last days of Hitler in the Führer bunker.
Yeah.
And if you read reviews of Downfall online, they talk about how it's this depressing, dark, dismal movie. Luna and I were just having a fucking
fun.
Sorry, swear jar. Great time. We were having a grand old time watching the downfall of Hitler.
It was like, ooh, awesome.
And it was just like refreshing. It was rejuvenating. Right. It was like a breath of fresh air. Just like, yeah, look at these Nazis failing and falling and getting exactly what they deserve. It was great. Yes, Omega Haxor's pointed out that Downfall is where those Hitler gets angry at things meme comes from. Yes, if you remember those memes, yes. But that's a point. Why am I talking about this? So another example would be like we watched an episode of Quantum Leap where they were involved in some kind of like with communism. Oh, it was the Lee Harvey Oswald episode. And Oswald goes to the Soviet Union and is like talking to the communists.
Yeah.
Okay, so like Luna and I have our own headcanon now. If you don't know what we're talking about, just try to get the story beats. You'll understand. But so there's this time traveler named Sam, and Sam is in the body of Lee Harvey Oswald. And Oswald goes to the Soviet Union to give information to the Soviets.
Yeah.
And like in the episode, Sam is like saying that Oswald's brain is like taking over his body and he can't control what he's saying. So he's giving the Soviets all of the secret information about a secret airplane.
Yeah.
And Luna and I are like, no, Sam's a secret communist. Like he's just pretending that Oswald's taken over his brain, but really he wants to help the Soviets because he's a crypto communist.
Yes.
That's like our headcanon. But anyway, my point is that you engage with media, you engage with things differently once you become class conscious.
Exactly.
And it's easy to forget how people who still haven't gained class consciousness and they're still mired in indoctrination and false consciousness to see things. So yeah, it's this sounds absolutely absurd to us. Everything that Joe Biden is saying is absurd. But if you're especially like an old kind of out of touch liberal who probably has like a comfortable life, you're kind of insulated from all the suffering in the USA right now, then this can all make perfect sense to you, I guess.
I mean, when I watched it, we watched together the Apocalypse kind of movie. And the scene where I scream in happiness.
Which one? What? Apocalypse Now?
Apocalypse Now!
Oh, that's a funny story. Okay, I'll tell that real quick. So the first time, one of the first movies that Luna and I watched together was, I don't know why I chose this in hindsight.
I don't know why.
But I was like, you want to watch Apocalypse Now? It's about the Vietnam War.
I was like, okay.
And so we watched it, and there's the scene where, the helicopter scene, where the Vietnamese woman throws the grenade in the helicopter. And Luna's just like, yeah! Like she's like, can't contain her joy.
So happy.
And this was like, I didn't know Luna very well at the time, and I wasn't really very far in my communist journey. And it was like, I was just like, that's not the reaction I would have expected. But now it's like, if I watch that again, I would have the same. So anyway, simplistic linguistics says, got him. All right. So anyway, I hope you get my point. You have to remember that not everybody is as far along as we are. And I forget that sometimes. I guess that's why I'm footnoting that. We're not going to have time to watch the rest of this entire thing.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, thank God.
Do you want to start wrapping it up?
Yes. Speed it over or just speed it up or something.
I mean, I guess we could.
There's anything else?
Maybe you could watch more of it on Mooncast or something. I mean, he talks about.
He just gibberish the same
Wait,
time.
I have an idea. Let's, for the last 5 minutes or so, Grant watched this. Slopstash, our producer, watched this. Slop, do you want to come on and talk about it a little bit with us? Share your thoughts? You don't have to. Okay, you don't sound very thrilled, but
No, I'm
He's
here.
like-
I'm
Grant was like, yeah, sorry, Grant. We put you through this.
where are you?
oh,
You-
I think
you-
we keep pressing the
I
same
got it.
buttons.
Yeah, we're fighting for control here. Hey, hi, Slopstash, producer Slopstash.
Hi, how are you?
Slop
How are
Stash?
both of y'all? I'm good.
So you watched this speech last night. What were
I
your
did,
thoughts?
and I pulled up, like, I actually typed up a nice transcript and had it all laid out, and I put it on a computer that is not in this workshop. So, and I didn't upload it to
Great.
the internet. So
Well, we're gonna have to just go vibe our way through this. What do you remember?
it was a real gold mine. There was really, you should go out and, like, if we don't watch the rest of this, you should really go out and watch it, because it's really an amazing thing.
It is a comedy goldmine. That is a fact. It's just so weird, and it
but
feels
yeah.
scripted. Do you feel like it felt scripted?
I mean, partially, if you had terrible script, I mean, I guess everyone's on strike, so the script was bad.
There's no writers.
I mean, there's a point where one of the funniest parts is whenever one of the reporters says something like, "I don't want to give you a softball" or something, and Biden's like, "Oh, I wouldn't even know what to do with a softball. I'd probably do worse."
Yeah, exactly, and it's and that's the last question too before he runs away from the reporters. I don't know if you noticed that part at the very end. They're
at the very end. You want to watch
huge
that?
music swell that is so loud compared to the rest of the audio. And there's reporters yelling over it.
Right. They definitely, yeah, he definitely wanted to go to Betty by. That's a fact. Jack. Wait, we had a funny comment. I gotta play it. I gotta put it on screen. Hold on. Where's it at? The Biden speech is painful. I've suffered from bad jet lag before, but that was ridiculous. Come on, man.
Come on, man.
Scab writers ruined it. DJ Adams says.
Oh, scab writers.
So I guess we could watch the graceless exit real quick, so people know what we're talking about. But let's see. Okay, throw it up on screen while I find the timestamp. I think I've got this keyed up so that yeah, he literally is like, "I'm sleepy."
The minister had access to change it, had access. It wasn't confrontational at all.
Are you-
Oh yeah. Okay. Somebody asked him about the conversation with the Chinese.
Celebrated international meetings.
Give a cup of
If
coffee
you
or
don't know what
something.
you want at the meeting, if you don't have a game plan, you may have a game plan.
He's talking about Xi
Share
Jinping.
it with me.
He's talking about how bad things are in China and how, what's Xi Jinping going to do? Does he have a game plan? I don't know. He hasn't shared his game plan with me. That's what he's saying.
But I tell you what, I don't know about you, but I'm going to go to bed.
Why should
He said, "I don't know about you, but I'm going to go to bed."
You talk about Mr. Lee. You said you spoke to the number 2 from China who was in India today?
So then the reporter's asking, you said you spoke to the number 2 from China while you were in India today?
Yeah,
What did you talk about?
we talked about at the conference overall. We talked about stability. We talked about making sure that the third world, the southern hemisphere had access to.
That Cold War mentality is just coming straight to the.
Yeah. And there's
Teamwork.
this whole thing is full of it too.
This whole thing, what?
This whole thing is full of it too. Where he'll have these small not Freudian slips, but they're these slips where he's accidentally saying the quiet part out loud.
Yeah, no. The worst thing is he brings back that same freaking story about the quote unquote. I'm using Biden's words here. He's got this story he tells about this movie he likes where there's an Indian scout, and the Indian scout calls somebody a dog-faced pony soldier, and he brings that up in this.
Oh,
It's like he's not with it. He doesn't know what it is. They changed what it is.
Thank you, everybody. This is my first one.
So, sorry. But that's it.
He's going to bed.
What's
Look at him.
It's not raising with every person I've met.
Are you worried about your son being indicted, Mr. President?
they asked him about his son being indicted.
Gosh.
That might not have been scripted.
Yeah.
Who knows? That might have been a limited hangout, though. Are you familiar with the concept of a limited hangout?
No.
So a limited hangout is like whenever they, if there's something you don't really want, if there's something that's bad for you, like a story or an aspect of the story that's bad for you, but there's like no way to avoid it being discussed in the media and stuff, you find a way to like frame it so that it gets discussed in a way that you want. So it's like Biden could very well have planted somebody to ask that question as he's walking away, because now all everybody's going to talk about is, oh, Biden walked away while they were asking that question, blah, 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 blah. And that's the big story. Now, that's not great for Biden, but it's better than many of the alternatives,
Yeah.
right? And what it does is it kind of like, it's like you can't contain that story. It's just too big. But you hang out. They call it, that's why it's called a hangout. You hang out the information and the story, but you do it in a limited way that limits the damage that it can do to you. So like, for instance, Biden could have like made a statement or something like that. It probably would have been a lot worse for him.
Yeah.
So this way, like the newspapers will talk about it, and that's the angle that they're going to cover. I'm not saying that that's what happened, but it could very well be a limited hangout. Anyway, so yeah, great speech, 10 stars, highly entertaining.
Are you proud of your president?
Am I proud of my president?
Yeah.
Am
Yeah,
I
are you
proud of my
your
president?
EJ?
I think that he has achieved something here. He has achieved. It is the worst speech I've ever seen in my life.
Wow.
I mean, like, can you think of a worse one, Slop? You went to a lot of those
That I've seen.
small business and like nonprofit fundraising meetings and stuff with me.
Yeah, it was good.
Would you say that was better than an average like small business chamber of commerce meeting speech?
No, man. I watched Columbia City Council meetings,
Yeah.
and this is 10 times worse than anything.
McClellan, USA #1 again. Yeehaw! We're the worst. We have the worst speech-making president of all time. All right. Well, it is getting. Speaking of getting sleepy and wanting to go to bed, like Joe Biden, I'm sure that Slop is getting sleepy. Kamala has given some
That's
terrible
me.
speeches, Blue Swallow. That is true, but I don't know. I don't think I've seen one worse than that one.
What's on Good Morning Sunday morning?
That was great. Oh, I wish I had that graphics package keyed up right now.
Yeah, right. Good morning Sunday morning.
Good morning, Sunday morning. All right. Anyway, I guess I'll say good night Sunday night to everybody. Slop, thank you for joining us. I know you're always hesitant to come on stream, but you put on the tie and everything. You might as well show your face.
I know. I might as well have shown people.
Yeah, look at that.
Wow.
Grace. That was about as graceful an exit as old Joe had.
I'm pretty good
Are
at
you
it.
ready for the questions?
Great. I have a last question, last moment for you, last minute.
All right. Well, this was fun. I had a good time today. I
Yeah.
hope you did as well. We try to jam so much into these 2 hours, you know, we
Right.
got to kind of rush through something. Maybe we got to work on our pacing or something. But anyway, I hope you enjoyed yourself. I'm very glad you joined us. As always, I'm EJ. You could check out my channel. We should probably have banners set up for our channels.
Yeah, right.
It'd be
Yeah, I
pretty
don't
cool
have
if
to
our
do that.
producers set up a banner right now that said like youtube.com/non-comp. Oh, the book.
Oh,
Okay.
oh, oh.
Well, not where I was
That's
going.
all. That's all I got.
All
Yeah.
right. Canyonhouse.org/shop if you want to
Yes.
get the Dialectical Materialism
Yes.
book. It is a book that will, and I'm not, look, this is such a cheesy thing to say.
Yeah, right. I just point it out there. Right.
Yeah.
See
Well,
that?
they see it.
that.
It's right there. The book will, if you're not familiar with dialectical materialism, I'm trying to think of how to say this without sounding like a weirdo.
Yeah,
It will
right.
change the way you think. It will change the way you see the world.
It will.
And everyone I've talked to who's read the book tells me that. It gives you a more advanced way of thinking about complex problems, which is exactly why Karl Marx and Engels invented the framework to begin with, was so that they could do a full proper analysis of capital. So anyway, that's where you get the book for free.
The book is great.
Richard says that the book is great.
Like no joke.
McClellan says no joke. Look at that. We got the testimonials. The book is awesome. It's been blowing my mind.
Wow.
So please check it out. Part 2 is coming out very soon. Slop's bag.
Well, I was just gonna say I'm also a big fan of the book. I keep it next to my bedside table, and I read it every night before I go to sleep.
Look at that. Can you get a better endorsement than from the Slopsash?
No.
No, you can't.
I don't think so.
So anyway, we're not asking you to buy it. You can get it for free. The ebook is at banninghouse.org/shop. It's also on archive.org and Z Library and a lot of other places. So check it out if you get a chance. Anyway, you can check out my channel at youtube.com/noncompete. I've been working really hard on my next video. It is about the very first Nazis in the USA.
It's really good, folks.
I
It's
just
really
did.
good.
I spent all day yesterday doing an animated sequence, which I think adds a little levity to a pretty dark subject. So hopefully it'll be watchable. Hopefully you'll enjoy it. And you definitely have to check out my partner, my comrade, my wife's channel, youtube.com/LunaOy. Luna has gently nuzzled her head into my hand to display her camaraderie to the world. YouTube.com/LunaOy. Mooncast will be Tuesday night at 10 p.m. Eastern U.S. time.
Mhm.
And Luna's got a video in the works right now, too. What's the video you're working on?
It's gonna the last part of democratic centralism, and I will show
Awesome.
you the actual meeting of the National Assembly of Vietnam, where I show you the 5 representatives who disagree with each other. So how we actually like talk and discuss in an actual meeting.
That's going to be cool. So definitely check out youtube.com/LunaOy. You can also check out our YouTube channels, youtube.com/LunaOy Live, youtube.com/noncompete live. I guess that's it for now. Thanks for watching. I'm EJ.
I'm Luna,
Sing us
not
a
my name.
sing us a
Said
song.
like you're in the actual studio. Here we are.
This is our. Oh, wait. Okay. One last really quick thing. Does it look to you, Luna, like Biden was standing in front of a green screen?
Sure, it does.
These flags don't look real. They look like they're
does.
CGI.
It does.
Look at that.
Yeah.
Wait,
Am I
who's
wrong?
Oh, it does look like.
Yeah, it does look real at all.
It doesn't look real. Was he
It-
standing in front of a
It
green screen?
looks too perfect. That's a point.
Just like
it's
our
too
set.
perfect.
Just like our set. So
Yeah.
so is our set a green screen? Is it not? Is that really Da Nang
Is
behind
it?
Luna?
Is it not?
You be the judge.
Yeah.
You make the call. All right, that's all for now. Luna,
Bye,
sing us a
everybody.
song.
Vùng lên hỡi các nô lệ ở thế gian, vùng lên hỡi ai cực khổ bần hà.
Yeah.
Sục sôi nhiệt huyết trong tim đầy chứa rồi, quyết phe này sống chết mà thôi.
I got some additions to my tattoo. You like it? Bye.